Maya Chen moved through the cargo bay with practiced efficiency, her scanner beeping softly as she cataloged the latest shipment from the Centauri trade routes. The massive space station Harmony's End hummed around her, a symphony of alien voices, mechanical sounds, and the constant whisper of air recyclers. To most observers, she was just another human working the logistics deck, unremarkable among the thousands of beings who called this place home. She wore the standard-issue gray jumpsuit of station maintenance, her black hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, tool belt hanging loose around her hips. Nothing about her suggested anything other than competent ordinariness. At 28, she had worked logistics for 3 years, earning a reputation for reliability and keeping to herself. The cargo containers towered above her, each one larger than a ground transport vehicle. Inside were goods from dozens of worlds: Andromedan silk, vegan spices, crystalline matrices from the silicon-based collective. Maya's job was to ensure everything arrived where it needed to go, when it needed to be there. It was precise work that required attention to detail but hardly glamorous. "Chen, you getting readings on Container 77 Alpha?" The voice belonged to Crix, her Zephyrian supervisor. The tall, blue-skinned alien approached on 4 spindly legs, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence as he reviewed his own scanner data. "Just finished it," Maya replied, tapping her device. "Contents match the manifest. Looks like premium thermal regulators from the Helix Nebula mines." Crix's mandibles clicked in approval. "Good. Station commander wants all high-value items verified twice before storage. Word is there have been piracy reports in the outer systems." Maya nodded, though she noticed Crix's nervous fidgeting. The Zephyrians were naturally anxious creatures, but lately, even the usually calm station supervisor seemed on edge. Reports of increased pirate activity had everyone jumpy, from dock workers to senior command staff. She moved to the next container, running her scanner along its surface. The readings came back clean, but something felt off. Maya had developed instincts about cargo over the years. This container's weight distribution seemed wrong for its listed contents. She ran a deeper scan, adjusting the frequencies. "Problem?" asked a voice behind her. Maya turned to see Dr. Vex, the station's chief medical officer. The Altarian physician was an imposing figure, standing nearly 7 feet tall with silver-scaled skin and eyes like polished obsidian. Unlike many of the other alien species aboard Harmony's End, Altarians had a reputation for being direct and perceptive. "Maybe," Maya said, studying her scanner. "This container's mass readings don't match the manifest. Could be an error in the paperwork or someone is not being honest about what they are shipping," Dr. Vex finished. His voice carried the slight whistle common to his species when they spoke standard galactic. Maya rescanned the container, this time using a different sensor array. The readings confirmed her suspicions. "Yeah, definitely heavier than it should be. I'll need to flag this for inspection." As she bent to mark the container, her jumpsuit sleeve rode up slightly, exposing part of her left forearm. Dr. Vex's obsidian eyes fixed on something there, and his scaled features shifted in what Maya had learned to recognize as surprise in his species. "Interesting," Dr. Vex murmured. But before Maya could ask what he meant, an alarm began blaring throughout the cargo bay. Red lights flashed as the station's emergency broadcast system crackled to life. "All personnel to stations. We have unknown contacts approaching on Vector 7 Mark IV. All personnel to stations." The cargo bay erupted into organized chaos as workers secured equipment and moved to their emergency positions. Maya felt her heart rate spike, but her hands remained steady as she locked down her scanner and secured the cargo manifest. "Chen," Crix called out, his 3 eyes wide with panic. "Emergency protocols. We need to secure all containers and evacuate non-essential personnel to the safe zones." Maya moved quickly, but her mind was already shifting into a different mode. The approaching contacts, the suspicious cargo, the recent piracy reports, patterns were forming that she recognized all too well. She had seen this before, in places far from Harmony's End. Dr. Vex had not moved toward the evacuation routes like the other non-logistics personnel. Instead, he approached Maya as she secured the final container locks. "That marking on your arm," he said quietly, his voice barely audible above the alarm klaxons. "I have seen something like it before, in medical databases from the Outer Rim conflicts." Maya's hands paused for just a moment as she sealed a cargo clamp. "Must have been someone else," she said evenly. "I'm just logistics." Perhaps, Dr. Vex replied, but his tone suggested he was far from convinced. Though I wonder if simple logistics personnel typically know how to identify suspicious cargo with such precision, or why your hands remained perfectly steady when the alarms began. Another announcement echoed through the station. Contact vessels are not responding to hails. All security teams to alert status. Repeat, all security teams to alert status. Maya straightened, her work complete. Around them, the cargo bay had mostly emptied as personnel evacuated to designated safe areas. The emergency lighting cast long shadows between the towering containers, creating an almost maze-like environment. Dr. Vex, Maya said, turning to face the tall physician. You should head to the medical bay. If those ships out there are what I think they are, you're going to be busy soon. And what do you think they are? He asked. Maya glanced toward the bay's main entrance, where security teams were already taking positions. Her expression had changed subtly, becoming more focused, more alert. For just a moment, the careful mask of ordinary competence slipped. Trouble, she said simply, the kind that doesn't take prisoners. Dr. Vex studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I will see you after this is resolved, Ms. Chen. I believe we may have more to discuss. As the Altarian physician moved toward the exit, Maya remained in the cargo bay, ostensibly to complete final security checks, but her eyes were already assessing sightlines, cover positions, and potential defensive advantages among the containers. Somewhere in the darkness of space beyond the station's hull, unknown ships were closing in, and Maya Chen was no longer thinking like a logistics technician. She was thinking like a soldier. The security briefing room felt cramped with 20 beings crammed into a space designed for 12. Station Commander Thale, a massive Ursid with rust-colored fur, stood at the center reviewing tactical displays while his security chiefs, a mix of species from across the galaxy, waited for orders. Maya had not intended to be there. She had finished her cargo bay security sweep and was heading to the designated civilian shelter when Commander Thale's aide, a nervous Terran named Singh, had spotted her in the corridor. Chen, right? You're the one who flagged the suspicious container, Singh had said, checking his tablet. Commander wants to see you. Now she stood near the back of the briefing room, still in her logistics jumpsuit, while military personnel in combat gear discussed battle plans. She felt distinctly out of place but tried to remain invisible. 3 ships, frigate class, reported Security Chief Vortak, a Krillian whose chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh briefing room lights. Configuration suggests pirate vessels heavily armed. They dropped out of hyperspace just outside. Sensor range and have been approaching at steady burn. Commander Thale's massive hands manipulated the holographic display, showing the approaching vessels. Any response to our hails? Negative, sir. Standard pirate protocol. Radio silence until they're close enough to make demands. Dr. Vex entered the briefing room, having apparently been summoned as well. His obsidian eyes quickly found Maya in the crowd, and she saw him whisper something to the station's head of security, Lieutenant Commander Pax, a lean human with graying temples. Pax glanced in Maya's direction, his experienced eyes studying her with new interest. Maya kept her expression neutral, but internally she wondered what Dr. Vex had told him. Defensive options? Commander Thale asked. Limited, Vortak admitted. Harmony's End was designed as a trade station, not a fortress. We have point defense, systems and some light weapons, but nothing that can match 3 combat frigates. Evacuation? Not enough time. They'll be in weapons range in 2 hours. Even if we started loading transports now, we could only get maybe 10% of the station population away before they arrive. The room fell silent except for the low hum of the station's systems. Maya watched the tactical display, her mind automatically analyzing approach vectors, weapons ranges, and defensive positions. Old habits died hard. Commander Thale's ears flattened against his head, a sign of deep concern in his species. Options for negotiation? Pirates usually want cargo and supplies, Lieutenant Commander Pax said, but with a station this size, they might demand more than we can afford to give, especially if they're planning to make this area their regular hunting ground. Sir, Dr. Vex spoke up, if I may suggest something. All eyes turned to the tall Altarian physician. Maya felt a moment of unease, sensing where this might be heading. I believe we may have overlooked a resource, Dr. Vex continued. During the cargo bay emergency, I observed Ms. Chen demonstrating some unusual capabilities for a logistics worker. Additionally, she bears markings that suggest prior military experience. Maya felt the attention of the room shift to her. Commander Thale's dark eyes fixed on her, and she could see the calculation happening behind them. Chen, step forward, the commander ordered. Maya moved through the crowd to stand before the massive Ursid. Up close, she could see the old battle scars running through his fur, marking him as a veteran of more than one conflict. "Show me your left forearm," he said simply. Maya hesitated for just a moment, then rolled up her sleeve. The tattoo was immediately visible, a stylized eagle clutching lightning bolts surrounded by stars with numbers beneath. 1st Battalion, 5th Regiment, 332nd Infantry. The effect was immediate. Lieutenant Commander Pax straightened as if he had been struck. Security Chief Vortak's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Maya recognized as Krillian surprise. Even some of the other military personnel shifted uncomfortably. "Terran military," Commander Thale said quietly. "That's not just any unit designation." "Is it, Pax?" Lieutenant Commander Pax shook his head slowly. "No, sir. The 332nd Infantry, the Ghost Regiment. They were the ones who held the line at Kepler Station." Maya saw recognition spreading through the room. The Battle of Kepler Station had become legend throughout the galaxy. The story of how a single Terran regiment had held off an entire pirate fleet for 6 days, long enough for civilian evacuations and reinforcements to arrive. It had been a brutal siege that had ended with the pirates retreating after suffering massive casualties. The 332nd was declared combat ineffective after Kepler, Vortak said, his exoskeleton plates shifting nervously. 90% casualties. 92%. Maya corrected quietly. 237 survivors out of 3,000. Commander Thale studied her with new respect. "What was your role, Chen?" "Combat engineer. Demolitions specialist." Maya's voice remained steady, professional. "Responsible for fortifications, battlefield preparation, and denial of key positions to enemy forces." "And after Kepler?" "Medical discharge, shrapnel damage to my left leg, hearing loss, and—" Maya paused. "Post-traumatic stress, the usual package." Lieutenant Commander Pax stepped forward. "Sir, the Ghost Regiment's tactics at Kepler became required study at the Academy. They turned a trading station into an impregnable fortress using nothing but standard supplies and engineering creativity." Dr. Vex added, "which would explain how Ms. Chen identified the suspicious cargo so quickly. Military explosives have distinct mass characteristics." Maya felt the weight of their expectations settling on her shoulders. She had come to Harmonies, and specifically to avoid this kind of situation, to live quietly and forget the things she had seen and done. But the patterns were all too familiar. The approaching ships, the limited options, the lives at stake. "Chen," Commander Thale said, "I'm going to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Can you help us?" Maya looked around the room at the faces staring at her, alien and human alike, all hoping she had solutions they could not see. She thought about the civilians in the safe zones, the children in the station schools, the thousands of beings who had no idea what was coming. "Yes," she said finally, "but not with standard defensive tactics. If those really are combat frigates, we can't fight them ship to ship. We'd need to think differently." "How differently?" Maya moved to the tactical display, her fingers dancing over the controls as she highlighted key sections of the station. "Harmony's End has advantages they don't expect. We're not a military installation, so they'll assume we're poorly defended. They'll want to board us to secure the cargo and control the population. And that's when we make them regret it." Maya's expression hardened, and for the first time since entering the room, she looked like what she truly was, a veteran of one of the galaxy's most brutal conflicts. "But first I need to see that suspicious cargo container. If it contains what I think it does, this just got a lot more interesting." The cargo container 77 Alpha sat under heavy guard as Maya approached with Commander Thale and a security escort. The massive bay had been cleared of all non-essential personnel, and the emergency lighting cast eerie shadows between the towering stacks of containers. According to the manifest, this should contain agricultural processing equipment, Lieutenant Commander Pax said, consulting his tablet. But your scans showed significant mass discrepancies. Maya circled the container slowly, running her hands along its surface. Her engineer's eye picked up details others missed. The reinforced corners, the unusual locking mechanisms, the subtle scoring marks that suggested this container had seen combat. This isn't standard shipping, she said, pointing to barely visible markings near the access panel. See these scratches? Battle damage, and this locking system is military grade. She pulled out her scanner, adjusting it to deeper penetration frequencies than a logistics worker would normally use. The readings that came back made her pause. Commander, I need this container opened. Right now. Chen, we don't have authorization to breach sealed cargo without— Sir, Maya interrupted, her voice carrying an edge of authority that had nothing to do with logistics work. This container is emitting trace radiation signatures consistent with military-grade explosives. Specifically, the kind used in ship-to-ship combat. The color drained from Lieutenant Commander Pax's face. Are you saying we have a bomb in our cargo bay? I'm saying we have weapons. The question is who put them here and why. Maya was already moving toward the container's access panel. But if I'm right about what's inside, we just got very lucky. Commander Thale's massive hand gestured for his security team to take defensive positions. Open it. Maya's fingers worked the container's locking mechanism with the practiced efficiency of someone who had dealt with similar systems under hostile conditions. The locks disengaged with a series of mechanical clicks, and the container's door swung open. Inside, secured in military-grade protective foam, were weapons that made even the experienced security personnel step back in surprise. Plasma rifles, ion cannons, portable missile systems, and something that made Maya smile grimly. A full demolitions kit complete with shaped charges and remote detonators. Sweet mother of stars, Lieutenant Commander Pax breathed. That's enough firepower to outfit a platoon. Maya was already examining the weapons, checking serial numbers and configuration types. These are top-tier military hardware. Recent manufacture, probably stolen from a military convoy. She picked up one of the plasma rifles, checking its charge status. Still in factory condition. Which means our approaching visitors might be more than simple pirates, Commander Thale observed. Or they're pirates who hit something big recently, Maya said, setting the rifle aside and examining the demolitions equipment. Either way, they were probably planning to collect this shipment after taking the station. Dr. Vex had arrived during the container inspection and now approached the weapons cache with clinical interest. This explains the suspicious mass readings. But how does it help our defensive situation? Maya looked up from the explosives kit and her expression had changed completely. Gone was any pretense of being a simple logistics worker. The woman standing there now was a combat engineer who had held impossible positions against overwhelming odds. It changes everything, she said. Commander, how long until those ships arrive? 90 minutes, maybe less. Then we need to move fast. Maya stood, her mind already working through tactical calculations. First, I need a complete schematic of the station. Power distribution, structural supports, ventilation systems, emergency bulkheads, everything. For what purpose? Commander Thale asked. To turn Harmony's End into a trap. Maya began pulling specific items from the weapons cache. Pirates operate on intimidation and quick strikes. They expect civilian populations to surrender rather than fight. They're not prepared for serious resistance. Lieutenant Commander Pax was studying the tactical possibilities. You're talking about urban warfare. Station fighting, exactly. And this station has advantages they won't see coming. Maya hefted one of the portable missile systems. Dr. Vex, I need to know about your medical bay. How well protected is it? Can it handle mass casualties? The medical bay was built to Alliance military standards for disaster response, Dr. Vex replied. Full surgical facilities, radiation shielding, independent life support. But why? Because we're going to give them a fight they're not expecting. Maya turned to Commander Thale. Sir, I need your permission to implement defensive measures that will probably violate several safety regulations and definitely void the station's insurance. The massive Ursids. Ears twitched in what Maya had learned was amusement. At this point, Chen, I'm more concerned about having a station left to insure. What do you need? First, we evacuate all civilians to the central core sections. Then we seal off the outer rings and turn them into kill zones. Maya moved to a wall display, calling up the station schematic. These docking bays where they'll board, we can control access through them, force them to come at us through choke points, and then, Maya smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Then we show them why the 332nd Infantry earned the name Ghost Regiment. We make them fight for every corridor, every room, every meter, and we make sure that every step they take costs them more than they're willing to pay. Security Chief Vortak's exoskeleton plates clicked nervously. This sounds like you're planning to let them board. I am. Fighting them ship to ship is suicide with our limited weapons. But once they're inside, Maya highlighted key positions on the station schematic. This becomes our battlefield with our rules. The casualties could be enormous, Dr. Vex warned. The casualties will be enormous if we surrender, Maya replied sharply. These aren't traders looking for easy profit. Military-grade weapons don't ship by accident. Whoever's coming is planning something bigger than a simple raid. Commander Thale studied the tactical display for a long moment. What do you need from us? Time, personnel, and trust, Maya said. I need engineering teams to modify key systems, security teams to prepare defensive positions, and I need everyone to understand that once this starts, we're committed. There's no backing down. And if your plan fails? Maya's expression hardened. Then at least we'll make them pay such a price that other stations will be safe. But Commander, she turned to face him directly. It won't fail. I've done this before. Lieutenant Commander Pax was already organizing deployment orders on his tablet. What's our first priority? Docking bay modifications, Maya said immediately. We're going to turn their entry points into choke points. Then we prepare welcome gifts they'll never forget. As the security teams began moving to implement her orders, Maya remained by the weapons cache, selecting equipment with the careful precision of a professional. Dr. Vex approached her, his obsidian eyes thoughtful. You seem different now, he observed. More focused, more dangerous. Maya secured a demolitions pack to her tool belt. War changes people, Doctor. Some of us never quite change back. And you truly believe this plan will work? Maya looked up at the station schematic, seeing not just a trading post but a fortress waiting to be born. The pirates are expecting a routine raid. Instead, they're going to walk into the same kind of hell that broke their friends at Kepler Station. Their friends? Trust me, Doctor. Pirates talk. They know what happened to the last fleet that tried to storm a position held by the 332nd Infantry. Maya's smile was cold as winter in space. They're about to learn why that lesson bears repeating. 70 minutes until contact. Maya moved through the station like a force of nature, engineering teams struggling to keep up with her rapid-fire modifications. What had seemed like impossible demands an hour ago were now taking shape as Harmony's End transformed from trading post to fortress. Seal that access tunnel completely. Maya called to a team of Zephyrian welders working on Docking Bay 7. I want their only entry point through the main airlock. And make sure those plasma charges are positioned exactly where I marked them. The tall blue aliens worked with nervous efficiency, their natural anxiety amplified by the approaching deadline. But they followed Maya's instructions precisely, having quickly learned that the human engineer's orders were based on hard-won experience. Crix, her former logistics supervisor, approached with a tablet full of status updates. Miss Chen, the modifications to the power grid are complete. Main corridor lighting can now be controlled from the security station. Good. What about the ventilation system? Engineering says they can route knockout gas through sections 7 through 12 on your command. Though they're concerned about civilian safety if the seals fail. Maya paused in her inspection of a shaped charge placement. There won't be any civilians in those sections. That's the point. She moved to the next position, checking sight lines and cover options. The docking bay was beginning to look like something from a combat manual. Clear fields of fire, concealed positions, and enough explosive surprises to make any boarding party reconsider their career choices. Lieutenant Commander Pax approached, leading a mixed squad of security personnel. Chen, we've distributed the weapons according to your specifications. But I have to ask, are you sure about positioning most of our firepower in the secondary positions? Trust the plan, Maya replied, adjusting the angle of a portable missile launcher. The initial boarding party needs to think they're winning. Let them push deep into the station before we show them the real resistance. That's a dangerous gamble. Maya looked up from her work, her expression serious. Lieutenant Commander, conventional tactics would have us concentrating our forces at the docking bays to repel boarders. How do you think that would work against 3 frigate-class vessels? Pax grimaced. We'd be slaughtered, exactly. So we do the unexpected. We let them board, let them think they're winning, then we cut them apart piece by piece. Maya secured the missile launcher and moved to the next position. By the time they realize what's happening, they'll be too committed to retreat. Dr. Vex arrived with a team of medical personnel, setting up a mobile trauma station in an armored alcove Maya had designated. The main medical bay is sealed and ready for casualties. We've also prepared emergency surgical facilities in the backup locations you requested. Good. You'll need them. Maya checked her chronometer. 45 minutes. How are the civilian evacuations? Complete, Security Chief Vortak reported, his chitinous plates clicking with satisfaction. All non-essential personnel are in the central core sections behind emergency bulkheads. Life support is independent and they have supplies for several days. Maya nodded approvingly. And the special surprise packages? Placed exactly where you specified, Vortak confirmed. Though I still question the wisdom of allowing enemies to penetrate so deeply into the station. That's because you're thinking like a defender, Maya replied, pulling up the station schematic on her portable display. I'm thinking like a predator. She highlighted the planned enemy movement routes, showing how the boarding parties would naturally flow through the station's corridors toward their objectives. They'll have 3 primary goals: secure the command center, control life support, and access the cargo bays. We're going to let them think they can achieve all 3. And then we spring the trap. Maya's finger traced the kill zones she had established. Look at these positions. Every corridor they need to use is covered by overlapping fields of fire. Every critical system they want to control is rigged with charges. Every route they take leads them deeper into prepared positions. Commander Thale's voice echoed through the station's communication system. All personnel, final defensive positions. Contact with enemy vessels in 30 minutes. Maya made one last circuit of the docking bay, checking each defensive position. The security teams were nervous but determined, a mixture of species united by necessity. She paused at each position, offering quiet words of encouragement and last-minute tactical advice. Remember, she told a Krillian security officer manning a plasma rifle, they'll expect you to break and run when they bring heavy firepower to bear. Instead, you fall back to prepared positions. Make them work for every meter. And if they overwhelm our position? The Krillian asked. Maya smiled grimly. Then you activate the charges and deny them the docking bay. Force them to find another way in, preferably through the kill zones we've prepared. She moved to the final position, where Lieutenant Commander Pax waited with a squad of human security personnel. These were veterans, she could tell. Their movements were confident, their weapons checks professional. Pax, your team will be their primary target once they realize what they're facing, Maya said. They'll try to eliminate what they perceive as the most dangerous opposition. Which means you need to look helpless while remaining deadly. Maya checked her own equipment one final time. Demolitions remote, sidearm, combat knife, emergency medical kit. Let them think they're winning until it's too late to retreat. A new voice crackled over the communication system. Commander Thale again, but his tone had changed. All stations. We have incoming communication from the approaching vessels. The message that followed was broadcast throughout the station, harsh and arrogant. Harmony's End. This is Captain Valdris of the Crimson Fleet. You are hereby claimed as prize salvage under the right of conquest. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with lethal force. You have 15 minutes to surrender. Your command codes and prepare for inspection, Maya. Exchange glances with Lieutenant Commander. Pax. Crimson Fleet, that explains the military. Hardware, you know them? By reputation? They're the ones who hit the military convoy at Proxima Station last month. Took everything, left no survivors. Maya's expression hardened. They're not here for simple piracy. They're here for conquest. Commander Thale's response was broadcast back. Captain Valdris, this is a civilian trading station operating under galactic commerce protocols. We cannot comply with unlawful demands. We request that you withdraw and seek legitimate trade arrangements. The pirate captain's laughter was cold and unpleasant. Trading station? Then you won't mind if we come aboard to inspect your trading goods. Docking in 10 minutes. As the communication ended, Maya felt the familiar calm that came before combat. Around her, the security teams made final preparations, checking weapons and reviewing their orders. The station hummed with nervous energy, but underneath it all was a growing sense of determination. "Maya," Dr. Vex called softly from his medical station. "Are you certain about this course of action?" Maya looked around the transformed docking bay, at the hidden weapons, the prepared charges, the determined faces of beings who had chosen to fight rather than surrender. "Doctor, sometimes the only way to ensure peace is to make war so costly that it becomes unthinkable. And if you're wrong?" Maya smiled, and for a moment she looked less like a logistics worker and more like what she truly was, a veteran of humanity's most elite military unit. Then at least they'll remember Harmony's End the same way they remember Kepler Station. The first explosions echoed through the station as the pirate vessels began their docking procedures. Maya activated her communication device and spoke quietly into it. "All teams, this is Ghost 1. Remember the plan. Let them come. And then let's show them why the 332nd Infantry never retreats." The first boarding pods hit Docking Bay 7 with violent precision, their armored hulls grinding against the station's superstructure. Maya watched from her concealed position as the pods began cutting through the airlock seals, exactly where she had expected them to breach. "Ghost 1 to all teams," she whispered into her communicator. "Contact initiated. Hold positions and wait for my signal." The airlock burst open with a shower of sparks and the first wave of pirates poured through. Maya counted 24 in the initial assault, armed with military-grade weapons and moving with the coordination of experienced soldiers, not simple raiders. The Crimson Fleet's reputation for recruiting ex-military personnel was clearly accurate. The pirates wore black combat armor with crimson markings, their faces hidden behind tactical visors. Their leader, a tall human with captain's insignia, gestured his teams forward with hand signals that Maya recognized from her own military training. "Secure the bay," the captain ordered. "Teams 2 and 3 advance to primary corridors. Team 4, hold this position for the next wave." Maya watched as the pirates spread out exactly as she had predicted, moving toward the exits that would take them deeper into the station. They were professional, cautious but confident, exactly the combination that would make her trap most effective. The second wave arrived 30 seconds later, another 20 pirates with heavier weapons. Maya noted portable artillery, breach charges, and what looked like powered combat suits. The Crimson Fleet had come prepared for serious resistance. "No contact with station security," reported one of the pirates. "Readings show life signs in the central sections, but the outer rings appear evacuated." "Smart civilians," the captain replied. "Makes our job easier. Advance teams, report." The voices of the advance teams crackled through their communication system. "Corridor 7 clear. No resistance in Section 4. Power distribution center undefended." Maya smiled grimly. Everything was proceeding according to plan. She activated her communicator again. "Ghost 1 to Thunder. How are our guests settling in?" Lieutenant Commander Pax's voice came back. "They've moved past the first checkpoint. No casualties yet. Teams are falling back per your instructions." "Good. Let them get comfortable." Maya watched as more pirates flooded through the docking bay, their confidence growing with each unopposed advance. The boarding operation was proceeding faster than they had expected, which would make the eventual trap even more devastating. "Captain," one of the advance scouts reported, "we've reached the main corridor junction. Still no resistance, but there are signs of recent defensive preparations. Welding marks, equipment modifications." The pirate captain paused, studying his tactical display. "Defensive preparations without defenders? Either they evacuated completely or we're walking into a trap," finished his lieutenant, a scarred woman with the look of a career soldier. Maya tensed. If they figured out the plan too early. But the captain shook his head. "If they had the firepower to threaten us, they'd have used it by now. More likely, they started preparations, then realized how hopeless their situation was. Continue the advance, but maintain formation." Maya relaxed slightly. Arrogance was a weakness she could exploit. The pirates continued their advance, and Maya began her own movement. Using service corridors and maintenance shafts that didn't appear on standard station maps, she shadowed their progress. The 332nd Infantry had been masters of mobile defense, and those skills came back as if she had used them yesterday. "Ghost 1 to medical," she whispered as she moved through a ventilation shaft above the advancing pirates. "Status report." Dr. Vex's voice was steady despite the circumstances. Medical bay secured, emergency facilities ready. We're monitoring the situation from... Here, good. Stay ready for casualties. Maya reached her next position, a concealed spot overlooking the main corridor, intersection where the pirate advance teams were converging. Through her scope, she could see Security Chief Vortak's team making their planned retreat from Section 4, apparently fleeing in panic. The pirates took the bait perfectly, advancing rapidly to occupy the abandoned positions. They were now deep inside the station, scattered across multiple sections and completely unaware of the weapons trained on them from concealed positions. Ghost 1 to all teams, Maya whispered. Targets are in position. Initiate Phase 2. The first surprise came from an unexpected direction. As the pirates advanced through Corridor 7, the lights suddenly went out, plunging them into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting eerie red shadows that made targeting difficult. What the hell? One of the pirates began, then stopped as a new sound echoed through the corridor. It was music. Specifically, it was the battle anthem of the 332nd Infantry, broadcast through the station's communication system at a volume that made concentration difficult and coordination nearly impossible. Psychological warfare, the pirate captain snarled. They're trying to rattle us. All teams maintain advance, use thermal imaging. But as the pirates activated their enhanced vision systems, Maya triggered the next surprise. Hidden vents opened throughout the occupied sections, releasing clouds of obscuring vapor that made thermal imaging useless while providing perfect concealment for the defending teams. Contact, shouted a pirate as the first shots erupted from concealed positions, taking fire from multiple directions. Maya watched through her scope as the carefully planned ambush unfolded. The pirates found themselves caught in crossfire from positions they couldn't locate, taking casualties while unable to effectively return fire. It was the beginning of the nightmare she had promised them. Ghost teams advance and engage, Maya ordered, then began her own contribution to the chaos. The shaped charges she had positioned earlier began detonating in sequence, not to kill but to channel the pirates' movement into predetermined kill zones. Corridors collapsed, forcing the invaders to take alternate routes that led them directly into prepared ambush positions. Fall back, the pirate captain ordered. Regroup at the docking bay. But when his teams tried to retreat, they discovered that Maya had anticipated that as well. The routes they had used to advance were now blocked by debris, emergency bulkheads, and carefully positioned defensive teams. They were trapped inside the station with no clear way out. Docking bay, respond, the captain called into his communicator. We need immediate extraction. The response that came back was not what he expected. Sir, docking bay is under heavy fire. We've lost contact with the guard teams. Something's happened to the airlock controls. We can't get the ships repositioned for extraction. Maya smiled as she heard the panic in the pirate captain's voice. The attack on the docking bay was being carried out by remote-controlled systems she had rigged earlier, making it appear that a large force was assaulting their escape route, when in reality it was just well-placed automation. Ghost 1 to all teams, she reported. Enemy morale is breaking. Maintain pressure and continue herding them toward the central kill zone. Through her scope, she watched as the pirates' confidence evaporated. What had begun as a routine boarding operation had become a nightmare of hidden enemies, impossible geometry, and steadily mounting casualties. They were discovering what the previous attackers at Kepler Station had learned too late. Fighting the 332nd Infantry was like fighting ghosts who could strike from anywhere and disappear into shadows. Captain, the scarred lieutenant, called to her commander. We need to find another way out. This whole station is a trap. The captain's response was lost in the chaos of another explosion, as Maya triggered more charges, further dividing the pirate forces and driving them toward the convergence point, where the real slaughter would begin. Maya activated her communicator one more time. Ghost 1 to Thunder. Time for Phase 3, drive them home. Phase 3 began with a sound that made the surviving pirates freeze in terror, the distinctive whistle of incoming artillery. Maya had rigged the station's cargo handling systems to launch improvised projectiles through the corridors, creating the illusion of heavy weapons fire while actually using nothing more than pressurized containers and precise timing. Incoming, screamed a pirate as one of the projectiles slammed into the wall above his position, showering the area with debris and filling the air with more obscuring dust. Maya moved through the maintenance shafts like a predator, watching as the remaining 43 pirates were driven toward the central convergence point she had prepared. Every explosion, every burst of covering fire, every blocked escape route was part of a carefully orchestrated symphony designed to herd them into the perfect killing ground. Ghost. "One to Thunder," she whispered into her communicator while observing the enemy movement through a ventilation grate. "Enemy forces are consolidating in Section 5 as planned. Initiate final positioning." Lieutenant Commander Pax's response was professionally calm despite the chaos around him. "Thunder copies. Moving to final positions now." The pirates were adapting faster than Maya would have liked. Their captain had rallied the survivors and was attempting to organize a defensive perimeter in what he correctly identified as the station's central hub. It was tactically sound thinking: control the center, secure communications, and prepare for either extraction or negotiation. Unfortunately for him, Maya had been counting on exactly that response. "All teams, listen carefully." The pirate captain's voice carried clearly through the hub as he addressed his remaining forces. "We're facing organized resistance by trained military personnel. Standard rating protocols are suspended. This is now a combat operation." Maya allowed herself a moment of professional respect for the enemy commander. He was competent, experienced, and dangerous. Under different circumstances, she might have appreciated his tactical thinking. "Sir," the scarred lieutenant reported, "we've lost 31 personnel. The remaining forces are scattered across 3 sections, and we have no confirmed route back to the ships. Then we take and hold this position until we can re-establish contact with the fleet," the captain replied. "Set up defensive positions covering all approaches, and get me a communication link to the station command." Maya smiled grimly. It was time to introduce herself properly. She dropped down from the maintenance shaft into an unused storage room adjacent to the hub, moving with the silent precision that had made the 332nd Infantry legendary. The pirates had night vision and thermal imaging, but Maya had something better: intimate knowledge of every corner, every hiding spot, every advantage the station could provide. Her first target was the pirate team securing the northern approach. 3 soldiers in professional formation, covering each other's movements as they advanced. Maya waited until they passed her concealed position, then struck with brutal efficiency. The combat knife took the rear guard silently. The plasma rifle she had liberated from the weapons cache eliminated the second before he could turn around. The third had time to shout a warning before Maya's sidearm ended his alert. "Contact north," called a voice from the hub. "Teams 2 and 3 are down." Maya was already moving, using the confusion to reposition. The pirates were expecting her to withdraw, to strike and fade like a guerrilla fighter. Instead, she pressed the attack, moving closer to their central position with each engagement. "Ghost teams, execute convergence attack," she ordered into her communicator. "Hit them from all sides simultaneously." The response was immediate and devastating. Security teams that had been shadowing the pirates from concealed positions suddenly opened fire from multiple directions. The carefully prepared kill zone became a crossfire nightmare that left the invaders with no safe positions and no clear targets. "Return fire! Return fire!" the pirate captain shouted, but his orders were lost in the chaos of coordinated assault from positions his teams couldn't even locate. Maya emerged from concealment 30 meters from the enemy commander, her captured plasma rifle trained on his position. "Captain Valdris," she called out, her voice cutting through the noise of battle. "This is Chen of the 332nd Infantry. You wanted to inspect our trading goods? Let me show you what we're really trading." The shaped charges she had positioned throughout the hub detonated in sequence, not to kill but to demonstrate power. The explosions were precisely calibrated to cause maximum psychological impact, while leaving the central area intact enough for what came next. "Ceasefire," Maya commanded, and the shooting stopped instantly. The sudden silence was more unnerving than the gunfire had been. Captain Valdris emerged from behind an overturned table, his weapon raised, but his expression showing the dawning realization of his situation. Around him, the 12 surviving members of his boarding force maintained their positions, but Maya could see the defeat in their body language. "The Ghost Regiment," Valdris said quietly. "I should have recognized the tactical signature." "You should have stayed away from civilian stations," Maya replied, keeping her weapon trained on him. "But since you're here, let me explain your current situation." Lieutenant Commander Pax and his teams emerged from their positions, surrounding the pirates with overwhelming firepower. Security Chief Vortok's forces blocked the exits, while Dr. Vex's medical team stood ready to treat the wounded, both friendly and enemy. Your ships are currently under attack by our automated defense systems, Maya continued conversationally. Your boarding teams have been eliminated or captured. Your extraction route is compromised, and you're surrounded by hostile forces in terrain that's been prepared specifically to counter your capabilities. What do you want? Valdris asked. The same thing I wanted at Kepler Station, Maya replied. For you to leave, immediately, permanently, and to spread the word that civilian stations under our protection are not acceptable targets. And if we refuse? Maya's smile was cold as vacuum. Then you'll discover why the 332nd Infantry earned its reputation. But I should mention, the charges I've placed throughout the station are currently armed and under my control. If you force me to detonate them, this entire section will decompress. Your choice. Captain Valdris looked around at his decimated force, at the prepared positions of the defenders, at the tactical nightmare his simple raiding operation had become. Maya watched him calculate odds, consider options, and reach the inevitable conclusion. What are your terms? He asked finally. Simple, Maya replied. You and your surviving personnel will be given medical treatment as needed, then escorted to your ships. You will depart immediately and never return to this system. In exchange, I won't activate the charges that are currently attached to your ship's docking clamps. You're bluffing. Maya pulled out her demolitions remote and showed him the armed indicators. Captain, I rigged charges to your ships the moment they docked. Would you like me to demonstrate with something non-essential? Perhaps your rear engine assembly? Valdris's face went pale as he realized she wasn't bluffing. You're insane. I'm thorough, Maya corrected. It's why the 332nd held Kepler Station for 6 days against impossible odds. And it's why Harmony's End will never fall to pirates while I'm here. The surrender negotiations took 20 minutes. Maya's terms were simple and non-negotiable. Immediate departure, no return. And word spread throughout the pirate networks that this station was protected by forces they did not want to face. As the defeated pirates were escorted back to their ships under heavy guard, Captain Valdris paused beside Maya. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, it is, Maya replied. And if you're smart, you'll make sure it stays that way. Because next time I won't offer terms. The pirate ships departed 30 minutes later, their holds empty and their crews reduced by more than half. Maya watched from the observation deck as they jumped to hyperspace, carrying with them the lesson that Harmony's End was no longer an easy target. Maya, Dr. Vex approached, having finished treating the wounded. That was impressive and terrifying. Maya was already removing her weapons and equipment, preparing to return to her civilian life. It was necessary, Doctor. Sometimes peace requires the credible threat of overwhelming violence, and now I go back to logistics, Maya said simply. Ships need to be loaded, manifests need to be verified, and containers need to be inspected. Though I suspect our cargo will be less interesting from now on. But as she walked back toward the cargo bays, Maya knew that her quiet life was over. Word would spread, had already started spreading, about the logistics technician who was really a veteran of humanity's most elite military unit. There would be questions, interviews, and probably offers to return to active service. For now, though she was content to be Maya Chen, logistics worker, on a trading station that would never again be considered an easy target by anyone looking for trouble. 3 weeks after the Crimson Fleet's defeat, Maya stood in the same cargo bay where this had all begun, running her scanner over a shipment of Centaurian textiles. To any casual observer, she was doing exactly what she had always done, checking manifests, verifying contents, ensuring proper storage protocols. But everything had changed. The scanner readings were clean, the manifest accurate, and the cargo exactly what it claimed to be. Maya made her notations and moved to the next container, maintaining the routine that had defined her life for 3 years. Yet she was acutely aware of the security escort that now accompanied her everywhere, the respectful distance maintained by other workers, and the way conversations stopped when she entered a room. Ms. Chen? The voice belonged to Ensign Torres, a young human who had been assigned as her official liaison with station security. Commander Thale would like to see you when you finish this section. Maya nodded without looking up from her work. These requests had become routine. Briefings, consultations, planning sessions for defensive improvements. The station administration had quickly realized that having a tactical expert on staff was an asset they intended to utilize fully. "Tell the commander I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said, completing her scan of the current container. "I want to finish this manifest first." As Torres departed, Maya continued her work, but her mind wandered to the changes that had transformed Harmony's End. The defensive modifications she had implemented during the crisis had been made permanent. Security teams now trained regularly in urban combat techniques. Emergency protocols had been completely rewritten based on lessons learned from the pirate attack. Most significantly, word had spread throughout the sector about what had happened here. Trading vessels now arrived with a sense of security they had never felt before. Several other stations had requested consultations on defensive planning, and pirates had conspicuously avoided this entire system since word of the Crimson Fleet's defeat had spread through the criminal networks. "Maya," Crix approached, his 3 eyes blinking in the pattern that indicated excitement among his species. "Did you hear the news from the Outer Rim?" "What news?" Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew. Another pirate fleet tried to attack Meridian Station 2 days ago, but when they got close enough to scan the defenders, they found former 332nd Infantry veterans among the security staff. Crix's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. "The pirates jumped back to hyperspace without even attempting to board." Maya smiled slightly. "Smart pirates." "The recruiting is working," Crix continued. "Stations throughout the sector are actively seeking retired military personnel, especially anyone with 332nd experience. The mere reputation is enough to deter most attacks." It was true. Maya's victory at Harmony's End had triggered a sector-wide shift in how trading stations approached security. The old model of minimal defenses and hoped-for mercy was being replaced by professional military planning and the clear message that attacking civilian targets would be costly and dangerous. "Maya," Dr. Vex approached from the medical bay entrance, his obsidian eyes reflecting their usual thoughtful intelligence. "I have received some interesting communications from colleagues in the galactic medical community." "About the battle?" Maya asked, though she was beginning to recognize the pattern of these conversations. "About you. Specifically about the psychological profiles and tactical assessments that have been circulating since the attack." Dr. Vex paused meaningfully. "There appears to be significant interest in your expertise from various military and security organizations." Maya had been expecting this. In the weeks since the battle, she had received 17 formal job offers, 12 requests for consultation contracts, and 3 invitations to speak at military academies. All of them offering substantial increases in pay and status compared to her current position. "And your medical opinion, doctor?" "That you seem remarkably content doing exactly what you were doing before the crisis," Dr. Vex observed. "Despite having options that most beings would consider attractive." Maya secured her scanner and prepared to move to the next cargo section. "The work is important, Dr. Vex. Ships arrive, cargo needs to be processed, supplies need to reach their destinations. It's honest work that serves a necessary function, as does military leadership. I did my military service. Now I do this." Maya's tone was firm but not unfriendly. "Sometimes the most important battles are the ones you prevent by being prepared." Dr. Vex nodded slowly. "And your presence here certainly prevents certain types of conflicts. Though I suspect it may create others." "What do you mean?" "Commander Thale has been in communication with Sector Command. There are discussions about formally upgrading Harmony's End status from civilian trading station to strategic defense installation." Dr. Vex watched Maya's reaction carefully. "With you as head of tactical planning." Maya paused in her work. "That's not what I want, but it may be what the sector needs." Before Maya could respond, the cargo bay's communication system activated. "All personnel, this is Commander Thale. We have 3 vessels approaching on standard trade vectors. However, initial scans indicate military-grade engines and weapon systems. Ms. Chen to the command center immediately." Maya sighed, setting down her scanner and checking the sidearm that had become a permanent part of her equipment. "Dr. Vex, it seems our conversation will have to continue later." "Indeed. Though I suspect the galaxy has decided that Maya Chen, logistics technician, is too valuable an asset to remain quietly in the cargo bays." As Maya headed toward the command center, she reflected on the path that had brought her here. 3 years ago, she had come to Harmony's End seeking anonymity and peaceful work. She had found both for a while, but the galaxy had other plans. The command center buzzed with activity as Maya arrived. Commander Thale stood at the tactical display, his massive form radiating the controlled tension of a military professional facing potential threat. "Chen, glad you're here," he said without turning around. "Take a look at these approaching vessels and tell me what you think." Maya studied the sensor readings, her trained eye picking out details that painted a clear picture. Military vessels attempting to disguise themselves as traders. Weapons hot but not actively targeting. They're testing our responses, probably trying to determine if the stories about our defensive capabilities are accurate. Recommendations? Let them dock normally but be ready for anything. If they're legitimate traders, we handle them as such. If they're hostiles? Maya smiled grimly. "Well, we've had practice with that," Commander Thale nodded. "I was hoping you'd say that." As the station prepared for yet another potential confrontation, Maya realized that Dr. Vex had been correct. The galaxy had decided that her expertise was too valuable to waste on simple logistics work, regardless of her personal preferences. But as she reviewed defensive positions and checked communications with security teams, Maya found she didn't mind as much as she had expected. There was satisfaction in protecting people, in ensuring that civilian stations could operate safely, in sending a clear message that humanity's veterans remained dangerous long after they left active service. The vessels docked without incident, carrying legitimate cargo and properly documented trade permits. But the message had been sent and received. Harmony's End was prepared for anything, defended by people who had proven their capabilities against overwhelmingly superior forces. Later that evening, as Maya completed her shift and headed back to her quarters, she passed the memorial wall that had been installed near the main corridor. It honored the security personnel who had been lost in various conflicts, including several who had died defending the station before her arrival. At the bottom of the memorial was a new addition, a simple plaque that read, "In memory of the 2,763 members of the 332nd Infantry Regiment, who gave their lives at Kepler Station so that others might live. Their sacrifice continues to protect the innocent." Maya paused before the plaque, remembering faces and names that would never leave her memory. Then she continued to her quarters, ready to sleep peacefully knowing that Harmony's End was safe, and that somewhere in the galaxy, pirates and raiders were learning to fear the simple phrase, "protected by veterans of the Ghost Regiment." Tomorrow there would be more cargo to inspect, more manifests to verify, and more routine logistics work to complete. But Maya Chen was no longer just a logistics technician, and she was finally at peace with what that meant.